The Unlit Files. 4 scary abandoned place stories from rooms that were never empty. File 24. The hospital room with no door. My brother and I found the old county hospital because of a wrong turn. It sat behind a chain-link fence at the end of a service road, 4 floors of broken windows and vines growing up the brick like black veins. Someone had spray-painted warnings over the emergency entrance, but the door was already open. We were not urban explorers. We were bored, stupid, and 22. Inside, the hospital smelled like wet plaster and old pennies. The lobby still had a directory on the wall, but half the letters had fallen off. Pediatrics, radiology, billing. Then, at the bottom, one line someone had scratched into the plastic. Do not follow the crying. My brother laughed at it. Then we heard a baby cry upstairs. Not a recording, not a cat, a real newborn cry, thin and desperate, coming from somewhere above us. I wanted to leave. My brother said we should at least look, because what if someone was hurt? We climbed to the 3rd floor. The crying stopped the moment our shoes touched the landing. The hallway was full of patient rooms, doors hanging open, beds stripped down to rusted frames. At the far end, there was one rectangle of clean white light spilling across the floor. Room 307. But when we reached it, there was no door. There was a room number screwed into the wall. There was a white line on the floor where a doorway should have been, but the wall was solid brick from corner to corner. From inside the wall, a baby started crying again. My brother put his ear against the brick. The crying stopped. Something on the other side put its ear against the wall, too. We heard it breathe. Then it whispered my brother's name. He backed away so fast he tripped over a fallen ceiling tile. The white light under the wall went dark. Every open door in the hallway slammed at once. Except one. Room 309 creaked open behind us. Inside, the room was clean, bed made, curtains closed. A plastic hospital bassinet sat beside the bed, rocking gently by itself. My brother stepped toward it. I grabbed his jacket and pulled him back. The bassinet stopped rocking. From inside it, something whispered in his voice. Let me see him. We ran. On the stairs, the baby crying changed into my brother crying, then into me crying, then into both of us begging from somewhere behind the walls. We made it outside and never went back. 2 weeks later, my brother received a hospital bracelet in the mail. No return address, no stamp. The name printed on it was his. The date of birth was tomorrow. File 25. The school bell after midnight. The old elementary school closed after a sinkhole opened under the gym, but the building stayed standing for years because the town never had money to tear it down. My friend Carla cleaned offices for the district. One night, her supervisor asked her to grab boxes of records from the old school because the archive room still had paper files nobody had digitized. I went with her because she did not want to go alone. The power was supposed to be off, but the hallway lights flickered when we walked in. At 12:01 a.m., the school bell rang. It was so loud we both ducked. Then, every classroom door opened 6 inches. Carla whispered, "Nope." But the archive room was at the end of the hall, and she needed the paycheck. We moved fast, keeping our flashlights low. The classrooms were empty, except for desks pushed against the walls. In room 4B, someone had written today's date on the chalkboard. Under it was one sentence: "They are not absent. They are hiding." We grabbed the boxes from the archive room. As we carried them back, the bell rang again. This time, children whispered from every classroom. Not words at first, just the soft, crowded sound of a class trying not to be heard.
Then one voice said, "Teacher is coming." Carla dropped her box. At the end of the hall, a woman stepped out of the gym. She wore a long gray dress and had no face, just smooth, pale skin where her eyes and mouth should have been. In one hand, she held a ruler. In the other, a roll book. Every classroom door opened wider. Small hands reached from the dark rooms and waved us inside. Carla and I ran for the front entrance. Behind us, the faceless teacher slapped the ruler against the wall in perfect rhythm with our footsteps. Left, right, left, right. The front doors were chained shut from the outside. The bell rang a third time. All the children whispered together, "Late." Carla picked up a metal chair and smashed the office window. We climbed out, covered in glass, and landed in the dead bushes below. Police found no chains on the doors the next morning, but in the archive room, one box had been opened. Inside was a class photo from 1978. There were 26 children in the picture. Carla and I were standing in the back row, and the faceless teacher had one hand on each of our shoulders.
File 26, The Church Basement Light. My uncle bought an old church to turn into a storage warehouse. It was the kind of little white church you see on back roads, with a leaning steeple, a gravel parking lot, and a cemetery behind it, where most of the stones had sunk into the grass. The basement light was on the first night he owned it. He called me because he thought someone had broken in. We checked every door, all locked, windows intact, but through the narrow basement windows, we could see a yellow bulb glowing below the floor. My uncle said the church did not have power yet. We opened the side door and went down with flashlights. The basement was one long fellowship hall with folding tables stacked against the wall. At the far end, a single bulb hung over a small wooden chair. On the chair was a tape recorder. It clicked on by itself. A congregation began singing. Old voices, dozens of them, slow and out of tune, like people trying to remember a hymn they had not sung in years. My uncle yanked the recorder's batteries out. The singing kept playing. Then the basement door upstairs closed. The bulb above the chair started swinging. With every pass, the room changed. Swing left, empty basement. Swing right, pews full of people. Swing left, folding tables. Swing right, faces turned toward us, mouths open, singing with no sound coming out. My uncle grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the stairs. Halfway up, something below us said, "Service is not over." We ran out through the side door. The next day, my uncle hired an electrician. The man refused to work after 10 minutes inside. He said there was no wiring to the basement light. There was also no basement. The stairs ended at a concrete wall. My uncle sold the church for less than he paid and never talked about it again. But last winter, I drove past it. The building was empty. The windows were dark, except for one narrow basement window glowing yellow under the floor.
File 27. The motel pool was full. The motel pool had been empty since before I started working there. It sat in the courtyard behind a locked fence, a cracked concrete bowl full of leaves, cigarette butts, and rainwater stains. The owner said filling it would cost more than the motel was worth. One night at 2:28, a guest called the front desk to complain about splashing. I told him the pool was closed. He said, "Then why are there people swimming?" I looked through the lobby window. The pool was full. Blue water, pool lights, ripples moving under the surface. There were shapes in it, pale and slow, circling under the water like people holding their breath. I called the owner. No answer. Then the pool phone rang. That phone had not worked in years. The cord was cut. I could see it hanging beside the gate. It rang anyway. I watched it through the window until I could not stand the sound. Then I went outside with the lobby keys. The moment I opened the gate, the water went still. Every shape under the surface stopped moving. The pool phone kept ringing. I picked it up. A woman whispered, "We need one more." Behind me, the motel room doors opened one by one. Guests stepped out in pajamas, barefoot, eyes closed, walking toward the pool like sleepwalkers. I screamed at them to wake up. Nobody did. One man climbed the fence and dropped into the water without making a splash. He did not come back up. I grabbed a pool skimmer and swung it at the nearest guest until she blinked and fell backward onto the concrete. That broke whatever was happening. The others woke up screaming. The water drained in less than 10 seconds. By the time the police arrived, the pool was empty again. No water, no lights, no missing guest. Except room 116 was open, and there was a wet trail from the bed to the courtyard. On the pillow, someone had left a folded towel. Inside it was a motel key. The tag said pool.